Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at BT9, and BT9 offers us lots of new and powerful tools to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be a brand new iteration of Machinedramon. So yes, Machinedramon is the gift that keeps on giving, with it magically getting a couple of cards of support in every single set since his release. And all of this support is slowly adding a lot of extra power to the deck. So what the deck was doing before was the idea is to hard play Machinedramon and then utilize Machinedramon's ability to add a whole bunch of different sources and really have a nice toolboxy Digimon to be able to handle various different situations. The only problem was he's still a level 6, and even though he does gain memory back, he's still really expensive, passing the memory over to the opponent, making it so that you can't necessarily utilize Machinedramon the turn you play him. But now with BT9, we got one of the best cards we could have ever hoped for this deck to actually be able to utilize the Machinedramon when we hard play him. So with all that said and done, let's just get into the deck profile. Starting off with the DigiTama, I am going to be running a black base for this, and because of that, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Pagumon as the best generic DigiTama that we have to work with. So Pagumon has the nice on-delete inheritable ability, where we get to reveal the top card of our deck. If it's a black Digimon, we get to add it into our hand. Otherwise, it goes to the bottom of the deck, adding some extra consistency when our lower level Digimon is going to be getting deleted. Next, on to the rookies, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Chikurimon. So Chikurimon, yes, is not a cyborg or a machine, so it doesn't necessarily have that type of synergy, but it's one of the best security threats that we have, just because if the opponent is playing a red splash and trying to run a delicate plan, then they can't play around Chikurimon because he's a security Digimon, not a security option. So what he's doing in security is that he has the ability where at the end of the battle, we get a de-digivolve 1 on one of the opponent's Digimon, acting as one of the best security threats to try to turn off some of the opponent's OTK potential. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Hagurumon. So Hagurumon is another consistency tool for the deck, only feeding into what the deck's game plan is. So it has the on-play ability where we get to trash out one Digimon with a machine or cyborg in its traits from our hand to be able to draw 2 cards. So essentially it's net 0 on card draw because we're using 2 to gain 2, but it's still just cycling through our deck, which is really important to try to help us find our parts and pieces. Next, on to the champions, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Mekanorimon. So Mekanorimon is a pretty decent Digimon to use overall. He's one of the cheapest hard play blockers, on top of him being a machine, on top of him being one of the best level 4 blockers, if not the best level 4 blocker in the game. So just him having blocker just helps us add some extra defense into the deck, especially on our lower levels when we're trying to do our various different things and try to set up our Machinedramon to be as best as he possibly can. Unfortunately, he won't be able to attack, but that's okay, because every time he deletes an opponent's Digimon and he survives, we get to unsuspend him, basically walling out anything that's smaller than him. And then the last champion of the deck is going to be 4 copies of Megadramon. So Megadramon from EX1 is a blocker, so it's just adding some extra defense to the deck. Unfortunately, it can't attack, but that's okay, because we're not looking to attack with this card. We're just looking to help try to wall out some of the opponent's potential pressure that they could be presenting us with. Then on top of that, he's a really good inheritable for our higher levels to think about using, because he has this nice inheritable ability of, when attacking, we get to trash out 1 Digimon with machine or cyborg in its traits from our hand to be able to draw 2 cards. So it's just, again, cycling through our cards to try to help our overall consistency while setting up our trash to help Machinedramon be as playable as it possibly can be. And then, even though we're not necessarily wanting to digivolve all the way up to some level 5s, we still have some that we actually want to digivolve, but the vast majority of them are going to be fodder potential. So Volcanomon is just a fodder card because he's a cyborg, on top of the fact that he can help give our Machinedramon security attack +1 for the opponent having an unsuspended Digimon in play. We have Andromon, which is one of the better ones that we actually would want to digivolve into to be able to utilize Megadramon ability, where when we Digivolve up into him, we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 level 6 Digimon with Machine and its traits from among them into our hand, and then trash the rest. So it's just, again, trying to help find our parts and pieces and fill up our trash to make Machinedramon as playable as possible, while being another good fodder card to be able to give our Machinedramon the blocker ability. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of MetalGreymon, basically doing something very similar to the 2 copies of Andromon that we just saw. The when Digivolving ability is exactly the same, and the inheritable that we're going to be giving our Machinedramon is going to be the reboot ability. Then Metalmamemon is, again, very similar to all of the other EX1 cyborgs because, well, that's just what they were designed to do. So, again, it's digging for our higher level Digimon when we Digivolve into it to find our Machinedramon and set him up, with the inheritable ability of helping adding some extra control by deleting Digimon with the play cost of 5 or less when we attack with our Machinedramon. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Megadramon. So Megadramon is just another fodder card to add some extra instances of being able to give our higher levels the blocker ability. Next, I'm going to be playing 2 copies of MetalGreymon. So this is the BT8 version of MetalGreymon, and this is another really good card to want to not only Digivolve because of his when Digivolving ability to de-Digivolve 1 and delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 3000 DP or less, but it's also a really good inheritable ability, allowing our Machinedramon to attack into the opponent's Digimon even if they're unsuspended. Next, I'm going to be running the BT9 version of Megadramon, just as some added Tamer hate, because when we Digivolve into him, we get to delete one of the opponent's Digimon or Tamers with a play cost of 3 or less. So having actual Tamer hate is really good, because there are some problematic Tamers that we really would want to try to get rid of, to try to stop the opponent from gaining a lot of value off of them. Then on top of that, his inheritable is pretty similar to his when Digivolve, except it's on attack for our Machinedramon to use to be able to delete the opponent's low-level Digimon or their low-costed Tamers. Next, I'm going to be running 1 copy of Megadramon. So what Megadramon from BT6 is doing is just giving our Machinedramon plus 2000 DP during our turn to try to make him a little bit stronger. I'm going to be running 1 copy of MetalGreymon from BT7. We don't necessarily care about his on-play ability, but you can tech the deck to actually be able to utilize it. But mostly, we're just using him as, again, another fodder card for his inheritable to be able to gain a memory when one of the opponent's Digimon is deleted. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Megadramon from EX1, again, as a card you could potentially hard play, Digivolve up into, or mostly just use as fodder for our Machinedramon to be able to add some extra punch, because he's going to be able to give our Machinedramon an extra instance of Security Attack +1. And then the last level 5 of the deck is going to be 2 copies of MetalGreymon from EX1, because, again, we could Digivolve up into him, or we could use him as fodder, so that way we could try to give our Machinedramon the piercing ability. And then as far as what Machinedramon is actually doing to be able to utilize all of these different level 5s and try to maximize the capabilities of all of their abilities is with his ability, where on play we get to place up to 5 level 5 red or black cards with Cyborg in their traits with different numbers from our hand or trash underneath this Digimon's Digivolution source to be able to gain 1 memory for each card placed. So ideally you're going to want to place the full 5, so that way we gain 5 memory back, so that way it's actually costing 7 to play Machinedramon versus the 12 that he's normally going to be. And then on top of that, the whole point of doing that is so that way we could, again, toolbox all of the different abilities that we're going to be having with our level 5s. Then he has the nice all turns ability where this Digimon's DP can't be reduced, so he's just a good card to be able to help beat out some control type decks that are utilizing DP reduction. Then on top of all of that, he has a third ability where during all turns, when this Digimon would be deleted, we get to trash 2 level 5 Digimon from his Digivolution source to prevent this Digimon from being deleted. So he's just a very sticky body to be able to live through multiple instances of being deleted. He can't be DP reduced, so he does have a couple of weaknesses in the form of being bounced or returned to the deck, but he's still just a very strong card to be utilizing either either way because of all of the different toolboxing that we could do to line up specific abilities to make him a very strong and threatening Digimon. And then the last Digimon of the deck and only other Mega I'm going to be running is going to be 2 copies of Chaosdramon. So Chaosdramon is kind of the pseudo level 7 of the deck. We're just using him because he's just another card that's level 6 for us to be able to utilize. So he has the nice alternative Digivolution condition where if we could Digivolve him for 1 on top of a Machinedramon. So that's just already pretty good. So when our Machinedramon's out of sources from protecting itself, then we could just Digivolve it into a Chaosdramon to get extra value off of our Machinedramon. Then on top of that, the whole intention on trying to use this card is for his when Digivolving ability, where we get to place 1 red or black level 5 cyborg from our trash in its Digivolution source to be able to delete one of the opponent's Digimon with 6000 DP or less for each level 5 with Cyborg in this Digimon's Digivolution source. So the more Cyborgs that we have in his evolution source, the more Digimon we'll be able to delete. But again, it's just going to allow us to be able to utilize our Machinedramon alternatively when it doesn't have any sources for us to use to be able to protect itself. Because Chaosdramon doesn't have any built-in protections, but we could still line up lots of different abilities with all of our level 5s. Next, in terms of options go, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Attack of the Heavy Mobile Digimon. So this is the brand new card from BT9 that makes the deck even more powerful and playable than it's ever been before. So what this card is doing is it has the main ability where we get to trash 1 card with Cyborg or Machine in its traits from our hand and have all of our level 6 Digimon with Machine in their traits gain the Rush ability and the Blitz ability for the turn. So this just allows us to just hard play our Machinedramon and be able to swing with him the turn that we're able to play him. So that's just what's making him extra playable, because now we could use the Machinedramon, whereas before we couldn't use the Machinedramon the turn we play him. Then it has a nice security ability where we get to trash a Machine or Cyborg in its traits from our hand to be able to delete a Digimon whose play cost is equal to or less than the Digimon that we trashed. And with all of the different play costs and all of the different Machines and Cyborgs, we could really figure out what's the best card to ditch to be able to delete the opponent's Digimon as a nice security threat. And then the last option of the deck is going to be another engine tool in the form of Ultimate Connection. So Ultimate Connection is just helping with the deck's overall flow and functionality because it's helping us draw some extra cards and gain some memory. So for the low play cost of 1, we get to trash 1 level 5 Digimon with Cyborg in its traits from our hand to be able to gain 2 memory and draw a card. So just the 2 memory that we're going to be gaining is really valuable, so it's actually like a Hammer Spark, where we're going to be gaining 1 memory the turn that we play this card, and it's a better version of Hammer Spark because it's going to be cycling through our deck. It's just because we get to draw a card off of discarding 1 card, which just helps set up our Machinedramon. Then its security activates its main, so it's actually like Hammer Spark in security, except it's also helping us cycle still, which is just super valuable. And then lastly, onto the Tamers, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Tai Kamiya. So Tai Kamiya is a flex spot. It could really be whatever Tamer you feel like you want to use, because the main role of this card is just to act as the memory setting Tamer to make sure our memory is always hard set to 3 if it's ever less than 3, to try to make our plays as efficient as we possibly can. So the upside to using this version of Tai is the fact that he has an ability that triggers on the opponent's turn, where all of our black Digimon gain plus 1000 DP, so it makes our lower level blocker Digimon a little bit stronger, on top of making our Machinedramon a little bit stronger during the opponent's turn, so that way they have a harder time dealing with our black Digimon. Next, I'm going to be running 2 copies of Kazu. So Kazu is another really good card to help set up our Machinedramon and to be able to help with the deck's overall flow and functionality. So at the start of our main phase, if we have a Digimon with Cyborg or Machine in its traits in play, then we get to gain 1 memory. So it's just helping us make our cards even more playable, just because it helps gain us memory for us literally having something on the field. And then he has the nice All Turns ability, where when one of our Digimon with Cyborg or Machine minion becomes suspended, whether blocking or attacking, then we get to suspend this Tamer to be able to draw one card and discard one card from our hand. So again, it's cycling through our deck to try to find our Machinedramon and set up our pieces for Machinedramon to be as playable as possible. And then the last Tamer of the deck is going to be 2 copies of Analog Youth, again, as a nice cycling or digging tool. So what this card is doing is it has the on-play ability where we get to reveal the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 Digimon from among them into our hand, and then trash the rest. So trashing the rest is pretty decent just because we're trying to dig out our Machinedramon, and then we get to throw all of the level 5s into our trash to be able to try to toolbox our Machinedramon as efficiently as we possibly can. Then he has a nice all turns ability for when we're using our higher level Digimon, where when one of our level 5 or higher Digimon with Digivolution sources is deleted, then we get to suspend this Tamer, and if we do, we get to gain 1 memory and hatch a Digi-Egg into an empty space in our raising area. So it allows us to turbo our raising area while also trying to gain some extra memory, either offensively or defensively. And then there's still just a whole bunch of different tech and tools that we could incorporate into the deck to be able to really customize the deck to your liking. So if you wanted to, you could think about running a blue splash. So with the blue splash, you have Vmon from BT3, because he has jamming, and we could pair this up with the jamming egg to be able to draw some extra cards to try to help cycle through our deck a little bit faster while being aggressive at the same time. And with the blue splash, we also have Dracomon that's helping search for our Drawmons, which is not color restricted, so we do run a lot of Drawmons in the deck, making him another good digging tool. Then speaking of on-play abilities, we also have Kaizernail as a really good reason to splash blue, because Kaizernail and Tidal Wave are able to split apart our inheritable sources. So if we do go up into a Machinedramon, use that Machinedramon up, go into a Chaosdramon, we then can Kaizernail out the Machinedramon and be able to utilize that Machinedramon again for some extra value. And a really good blue Tamer to go along with this is going to be Kyoshiro, just because Kyoshiro is going to be a memory setting Tamer that works generically with any level 5 or higher Digimon to help us draw some extra cards when we don't have a lot of cards in our hand. Then you could also think about running a purple splash, just because purple has lots of draw and discard potential on top of a lot of milling, which is kind of what Machinedramon wants to be doing to be able to fill up its trash and see Machinedramon as often as we possibly can. So you could run the whole Aizmon package, where you could use Demimeramon as the egg, Gabumon as a level 3, and Aizmon Scatter Mode to be able to draw lots of cards and discard lots of cards, or even at worst, we still have Labramon as a good cycler, Tapermon as a good way to draw some extra cards, and Gabumon from the starter deck as another good card to try to help cycle with our level 4s. And a really decent level 4 Digimon for us to be using is Dobermon, just because it helps us mill our cards. Then if you wanted to, you could even run a red low end, just because, well, the deck is already kind of leaning into red and black already. So Guilmon is really good, just because we could pair him up with Gigimon to be able to draw 2 cards for swinging with a rookie, which is just a lot of extra card draw. Then we do have some good red-black transition cards if you do want to try to Digivolve a little bit more. So we do have Monochromon as a really good blocker to be able to use. That's both in red and black. And then we also have Cyclonemon as another red-black transition tool. And then as far as some other level 5s, we do have a lot of other red and black level 5 cyborg Digimon for us to be utilizing. And then because we are in red and black, we do have a whole bunch of different level 7s that you could think about utilizing. So Death Exmon is going to be the highlight here, just because it's another super easy card for us to utilize. So whether we're Digivolving on top of our Machinedramon when it's all used up, or if we're just looking to hard play the card just because it's a really good level 7 to hard play, doesn't necessarily matter. It's just level 7s are pretty decent in the deck, depending on the one that you use to help synergize, and what weaknesses the deck is trying to shore up with the use of the level 7. Then we do have a lot of different various removal tools in both black and red for us to be utilizing, or we could think about utilizing. I don't think it's necessarily needed just because the options that we already have are pretty decent already. But we do have even more Tekken tools for us to utilize and customize, like Congo and Breath of the Gods, to be able to cover our bases in terms of the protection that our Machinedramon has. Then we still have some various other tamers in both red and black for us to utilize. So we do have Izzy and Joe for some extra card draw and extra memory generation. And if you want a really good red tamer to use, then we do have Hero, because it works generically with any level 5 or higher Digimon. So if you do want to try to take advantage of the BT7 MetalGreymon as an example with his on-play ability, then this Hero is the perfect card to synergize with it. But that just goes to show that there's a lot of potential in this type of a deck, and it really can be customized and fit for various different metas depending on what you're expected to see and the types of cards that you want to use. Whether it's going to be a red base, black base, blue base, purple base, doesn't necessarily matter. It's all trying to do the same thing on a cycle through your deck, find your parts and pieces, and fill up your trash to be able to utilize Machinedramon as effectively as we possibly can. And even though this deck might not be tier 1 hyper meta competitive, I do think this is a really solid core or shell to help us start customizing the Machinedramon deck to your personal liking. And the inclusion of the new option from BT9 really makes the deck even more playable than it's ever been. And as long as we're getting new level 5 Cyborg Digimon in red and black, this deck will always see some mild updates and mild support, which is always very, very welcome. So that's all I really have for this video. As always, feel free to tell me your thoughts down in the comments below, and down in the description below are a couple of different ways you could support me and the channel. So I do have a TCG Player affiliate link, so when you use that link to buy cards off of TCG Player, then some of that money will go to supporting me and the channel. I also do make and sell playmats over on Overcard Gamers on Facebook, so when you buy a playmat with my design, then some of that money will also go to help supporting me and the channel. And on top of all of that, I do have a Twitch account over on twitch.tv/Zenitsu, so giving me a follow and a subscription also helps support me there, and I do play Digimon on top of various other games on that platform as well. So thank you everyone for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content, and I'll see you in the next video.